To start, can we go through some of the injury updates? I saw that Audie and Ridgewell weren't in training at least yesterday. I'm not. I know Jake came out of the game as well. How are all three of them doing?
Yeah, I mean, you saw it. They weren't in training, so they haven't been in training this week to date. So they're looking unlikely for the weekend.
Is Marco still a few weeks away too? Where is he at?
We're hoping early next week that he's back in training.
Given those absences, I mean, obviously that maybe wasn't the issue in Toronto, but having some leaders out again, do you need other players to step up, or how do you kind of work around those, having some of your Audie and Ridgewell, some of your bigger leaders out?
Well, we were 57 minutes. We're in the game, and you'd say going on the road playing the best team in the league that they never really got going. And they were struggling, and there was a lot of frustration in their team if you were there and watching it live. I mean, they weren't creating chances, and we were knocking on the door, and then we missed a very good chance, from 10 yards out, and if we score that, the game's different, and these are the fine lines. And then coming back the other way, we give up a goal, not a great goal, and now we're down 1-0, and then the next 8 minutes, honestly, we battered them, and we missed another little header, and we had a point-blank set piece that I thought, one of those two should have should have, fallen, and then it's 1-1. So really when you look at 70 minutes of the game against a very good team on the road, we're right there, we're in it. Obviously, the last 20 minutes, I spoke about that after the game. We hung our heads, a couple guys, wasn't everybody, a couple guys, and we gave up the final 2 goals, and, we're never going to accept that. But, I think a lot of that had to do with we're down 2-0, and, I think it affected a few guys. I think they thought the game was done. For 70 minutes, there are positives, but everybody will remember the 4-1.
In terms of, guys hanging their heads, how do you look at maybe that RSL game at home, 4-1, you look at maybe some of these late goals conceded. Is there something you can do to maybe promote, try to make sure your guys are sticking with the right mentality, that players on the field are pushing each other to make sure that in the big moments you guys will continue playing with the right mentality?
I mean, RSL, we're down 2 men. I don't think it has anything to do with anything other than we're down two men against RSL, 2 red cards. So I don't think it's been an issue at all. But it was an issue in that game, and that's enough for me. But I think it's more individuals, not a team thing. And
then New York has obviously been a team that's been playing really well, but is coming off a really short rest. Some of their biggest players played 120 minutes in that U.S. Open Cup game on Tuesday. How does that maybe change your preparation, not necessarily knowing who's going to be available to go for them?
You never know every week what guys are going to do. Obviously you can only game plan for what you know. So we always prepare our guys for what we know and what we've seen in the past. And, we've seen with New York, they're in very good form. As good as I thought Toronto was, I think New York's actually better when I look at their recent form. They've won 5 of the last 6 games, and that's not including the Open Cup games. So there's a couple more wins in there as well. So I think they're one of the best teams in the league. They have a very good striker in Wright Phillips, and the way that they play is extremely difficult with their pressing, and their formation switch has made the difference. They were kind of playing 4-2-3-1, which is a system they've used in the past, and then early in the year kind of a 4-2-2-2, but they've switched to 3-4-3, call it a 3-6-1, and ever since they made that switch, they've been in really good form, on a good run, and when I look at their recent form, as good as Toronto was, I think this team's better.
Caleb, you talked about being disappointed in the team's response. Now that you've had a couple days back, what's the response been in training? Have you seen guys push themselves harder? Are you satisfied with that response?
Like I said, individuals. I never said the whole team hung their head. I never said that it was a team thing. Okay, we gave up the last 2 goals because certain individuals stopped playing and hung their heads. That's it. So we'll make those changes and we'll be fine the next game.
Caleb, in your experience with a team like New York coming off an emotional win, flying out here, you don't know who's going to play, but is the momentum, I guess, a factor as well as not having as many fresh legs? I guess what I'm asking is, do you expect that confidence to be part of the equation on their side come Friday?
I mean, again, if they wanted to play the exact same team again, they could do that. We've played pretty much the same lineup 3 games in 7 days, 8 days, 6 days. You can do that. You can manage it. They're an extremely fit team. So we're going to prepare as if they're going to play their top guys because we don't know anything different. We expect there'll be some rotation. You can kind of predict maybe in a few spots the rotation, but we don't have a crystal ball to be able to figure that out, and you can overthink that. So we're going to focus like we always do on ourselves, what we need to do. We'll focus generally on the Red Bull and what they do and how they play and their formation they've used. And then we'll look at the start sheet, and obviously now we'll know the lineup. But we have to prepare as if they're going to play the same lineup they've played the last 2 games. And they won both of those games. They might rotate, but I don't know. I'm not in that locker room.
Just thoughts on the Eastern Conference as a whole, kind of seeming to rise up this year. Do you have theories as to why maybe that's happened?
Oh, I think, when you look at this league, there's a lot of waves of ups and downs, and, one year team's up, the next year they're down, and vice versa. Chicago's a great example, and last year the talk was Colorado, and, and so this is a little bit the league and the parity and the mechanisms that help teams that haven't done well. They get more help, they get more money, they get more allocation, so they have better players, and, they get better. It's that simple. The better players you have, the better team you're going to be. It's that simple. So I think when you're looking at the East, they've added a lot of good players on these teams in that league, and I think they're definitely better this year than they were last year. And you could argue, based on the table and based on the talent of these teams, that they're better than the West this year. But I would also say that the West, top to bottom, in my opinion, is better. But I think maybe there's 5, 6 teams in the East that are maybe as good or better than the best teams in the West, if that makes sense.
Coach, just wondering, generally speaking, is playing on a Friday, do you prefer that? Is it more of a challenge? Just some of the differences between playing on a Friday rather than a Saturday or even a Sunday.
No, not a big difference. Our rhythm on game day is the same. The players, their rhythm is the same, what they do. Night game is easy because you have all day to kind of gear up. I think when you're playing at a time like 11 a.m., that's when it starts to get a little tricky. But with that rhythm, it was easy because we train right around that time. So I've found sometimes the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock rock. I had to throw that in. It just sounded like the best. Those times are the toughest because it's in between what we're used to, a night game. We play enough night games where that's really easy and normal. And we train, at 10, so that's easy and normal. But the in-between times, and I think just in general, right, we all kind of feel that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, where you need a coffee. So I think those are the trickiest times. This will be no different. Might be different for the fans because they had to work all day, but it's not any different for us.
And then I guess timing-wise as well, since I don't think I'll get a chance to ask you about this, but just the eclipse, practicing during the eclipse or around that time, will you guys be out on the field, that type of thing?
Yeah, we have training on Monday. So we'll have 2.5 minutes where we have to take a break, put the glasses on, and so football goes on. Half the time I don't even know if it's if my days off are midweek sometimes, and so as a player, 11 months, there's no weekends. It's there's always a practice. There's no holidays. We don't go to weddings. I've sent in 100 RSVPs. No, it's just so the practice will go on. We're not going to change that, but yeah, we'll probably put we do have some glasses. We're going to have some glasses, so we'll put them on and take a 2.5 minute break. When it gets dark, get back to work.
All good?
Yeah, one more, just to follow up on with Ridgewell's injury. You said last week you thought it might be scar tissue. That would be best case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is, or have you guys determined more specifically what the injury?
Yeah, we think it still is. Best case scenario was always going to be 2 to 3 weeks. So it's looking still like that. Could be 4. Depends on how he responds, but he'll definitely be out, I think, next week. This weekend, next week.
Caleb, you'll never find more of a team-first guy than Diego Valeri, but over the weekend he did set a milestone. Do you have any remarks, comments on that?
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement. He continues to rewrite or write, the record books here in the league. I think what's amazing with Diego is, this is his 5th year in the league, and he's maybe in his hottest run of form of his career, with no evidence of slowing down. So I think it's great. I think he's produced every single year. There's never been a year other than the year he was out with the injury where he hasn't produced. So he's always good. I don't think he's changed at all. I think the best thing about him is his professionalism continues to show in his form, his lack of injuries, his production, his ability to cover ground. That's the most incredible thing. I'm not surprised by the soccer. I saw that in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's all the same. The soccer's the same. The goals are the same. There's nothing new there. But I think it's the fact that he's doing it every year after year, and 5 years now, he's been able to do it, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down. I think that's a real statement, of his professionalism and how he takes care of himself, and that's why he's able to continue to do it.